Hello YouTube. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create manual segues, which is something that is not really common on the internet, and I think it's very useful, so I decided to make a tutorial on it. So create a single view application and call it manual segue. Create it. So first of all, we're going to lay out the user interface. So go into your storyboard, click on the navigation controller, and go to editor, embed in navigation controller. So we get this nice title bar without having to manually place the title bar. So as a title, write enter password. Then we're gonna need a text field to accept the password. Okay. Now we need another view controller, which for now we'll just leave where it is. So open the assistant editor, go into your view controller.h, and click and actually create two curly brackets, and in the middle of these click and drag your text field, call it PW field, that's short for password, and the action, create an action, call it enter PW. Event did end on exit, make sure it's did end on exit because this will let us make sure that the password is entered when the user presses enter on the keyboard. Okay, so with this part of the view controller, we're done. Go into the view controller that you previously created and we left aside, and make a label in the middle and write password is correct, because we're gonna push to the to the view controller, and I want to make sure that it's going to the right place, if that makes sense. So now you're gonna go back on your other first view controller and go into the connections inspector, and for triggered segues, click and drag on manual onto the second view controller and select push. Now notice that this segue, which is usually connected to a button, is no longer connected to a button, but it's just general to the view controller, meaning that every function can use it. I mean, every segue can be used by any part of the view controller .m file, but these are not specifically bound to buttons. So now that we've done this, we can go into view controller .m, and in your enter password action, you're gonna need two strings. The first one will be real password equals to, let's say, password, and we're going to use this to compare the password that the user enters with this constant password. So create an nsstring I'll call it password is equal to the name of the field, so pw field dot text. Now we need an if statement, and so you might be tempted to compare these two with an equal sign, but the point is that you can't do that with strings, because I suppose that would compare the addresses in memory, while you need to compare the actual text. So you need a string function from Apple's library, which is equal to. So let's say if password is equal to string, real password self perform segue with identifier, and then we go back to our view controller, and in the attributes inspector we need to give an ID to the segue so that we can tell the Xcode to push that specific segue. So let's call it segue ID. Perform segue with identifier, quotation marks, segue ID, and sender will be self. Then we need an else statement, because either the password is right or it is wrong. There's not much more to it, so we don't really need another if. So we'll just display an alert if the password is wrong. And if you don't know much about alerts, you should check out my tutorial on alerts, and that should help you. So in it, the title, wrong, the password you entered is incorrect. Delegate will be self, cancel button will be okay, other button titles will be nil, because we don't need any other button titles really. So error show. And because this segue is a push segue, it should display that back button on the navigation bar, which should allow you to go back to the initial view, even if in a real app this probably wouldn't be done. You would probably use a modal segue, because you don't really go back to the enter password view controller. So this should do it, except I just want to add one more thing, which is a password field, set placeholder, enter password here. So it will display a line of text which the user can't edit, and it just displays information. So it will say that, it will tell the user where to put the password. This is optional. You don't really need to do it. Okay, so see, here's the placeholder, and we can enter a password. Let's just type something random and press return. It will say the password you entered is incorrect because it does not match the password we put. But if instead we put password, see, it pushed the segue and it went to the view. And you would need to re-enter it if you want to go back to it. But I want to show you without changing the type of segue to modal, because usually in a real application you don't go back to the password screen. So that will be good. And I want to show you that if I change this string, it will let me change it to any password I want. So let's say I want to call it hello. If we type the previous password, it will say the password you entered is incorrect because we changed it. We changed it to hello. If we, in fact, if we type hello, there the segue will be pushed. What you will notice though is that the bar is not there anymore. This is because we changed the segue from push to modal, and push automatically adds the navigation bar while modal doesn't. And this is why you would use modal for a password entering screen, because once the user has logged in, then he doesn't have to log back in. That wouldn't make sense. But I think this is a very useful tutorial. It integrates how to compare strings and manual segues, which are really useful. So I really hope you like this, and please make sure you rate, comment, subscribe, and possibly if you really like these videos, you might want to tell your friends about them. And I hope you really learn a lot from them, because this is how I learn how to code on Xcode. And see you in the next video.